Welcome, everybody, and welcome to the Microsoft 365 Development Bi-Weekly Call of September the 30th, 2021. I'm Paolo Pialorsi, and I'm your host today for this call. And let's move to the agenda and see what we are going to talk about. So, like always in these calls, we are going to see what are the latest news about the PnP initiative and all of the projects that we have as a PnP community. And right after that, we will also see what are the news in all of the galleries, sample galleries that we have in PnP. Of course, we will save a couple of minutes to have the together mode picture, and then we will move to 3 great demos from Thomas Golles, Lee Ford, and Natalie Piemkowska. So let's move on and let's start talking about the community and how you can contribute to the PnP community. You know, we have a lot of activities that we do, like demos, projects on GitHub, source code available on GitHub, and we love to collect your feedback about all of these projects and about all of these initiatives. And if you like and if you want to contribute, of course, you can freely contribute to the GitHub project that we have, providing issues or pull requests in order to improve the code quality of all of the solutions and projects that we provide, as well as, if you like, you can share your demos and your patterns by writing articles or submitting demos for calls like this one. And for example, if you want to do that, keep into account this URL, aka.ms m365pnp/request/demo to request the demo spot and be on the agenda of one of the upcoming PnP bi-weekly calls. As PnP, we also provide a lot of useful content for developers and IT pros. For example, we have the Microsoft 365 developer videos, as well as the community videos available under the Microsoft 365 community videos channel on YouTube. As I already said, we have plenty of open source projects on GitHub, and here you can find the main URLs for the organization where you can find all of the repositories. And we provide a bunch of galleries of samples about how to create solution for Teams, SharePoint Framework, Power Platform, and so on and so forth. And generally speaking, if you want to learn about what we do as a PnP community, you definitely should go to aka.ms/m365pnp. That's the entry point for the PnP site. And there you will find the whole list of initiatives, projects, the list of people contributing to PnP. And so that's definitely the entry point to start digging into what PnP is and to start learning how to contribute to PnP. One of the initiatives that we have, one of the newest ones, is the script samples. I know that Paul is together with us today, so please, Paul, let us know about the script samples gallery.
Sure, thanks, Paolo. PnP Script Samples is a site for sharing your PowerShell scripts or Bash. This will be useful when you're automating tasks in 365, and you can host things like examples of where you created scripts for CLI for 365 or PnP PowerShell or many others actually as well. I'd like to say thank you for the contributions so far. They've been absolutely awesome. We've had 4 new samples this in the last couple of weeks and 1 updated sample. So this is the case where you've got an existing scenario that's listed in the gallery. You can add, say, for example, the CLI for 365 to a sample that contains PnP PowerShell as a way of extending that sample further. And I'd like to thank you for Valeras for majority of the contributions in the space. It's absolutely awesome. I've made some visual improvements to the site. The imagery was a bit too bright for my liking, so I've sort of dulled it down and reduced the imagery so it's focused more on the samples. You'll have more samples on the screen at once. I've also added a ton of new issues to the issues list in the repo. So if you are participating in the Hacktoberfest, there's some ideas there where you can contribute to the library and potentially get a t-shirt at the end of it and a community badge, that kind of thing. So yeah, by all means, check out the library, and over to you, Paolo.
Thank you, Paul. And yes, talking about the Hacktoberfest, I guess David wants to cover this one, or maybe you, Paul.
Yeah, I can cover it, no problem. So Hacktoberfest is an industry-wide initiative during the month of October, really to get everyone involved in contributing. It is not exclusive to PnP, but we do encourage it and support it. So it begins tomorrow, October 1st, but you can register today. Any pull request submitted by any PnP GitHub labeled with Hacktoberfest is eligible. So if you don't see one labeled, it's in the upper right-hand corner, just reach out to any of the PnP team and we can ensure it gets added. You submit 4 pull requests over the course of October 1st to the 31st, and the first 55,000 will get a shirt, which is pretty cool. But we're also going to do some badging opportunities, which has no limit. So we look forward to everyone's contributions. And again, you can look for good first issues and help wanted within CLI, Microsoft 365, community docs. If you join sharing as caring sessions like first time contributor, community docs, or the newest Power Platform first-time contributor session, those are all going to be live hands-on with GitHub and will absolutely count towards the Hacktoberfest as well. So get involved, sign up, go to hacktoberfest.digitalocean.com. You just sign in with your GitHub account and you will be registered.
Yeah, thank you, David. And of course, if you are new to the PnP community and you don't know how to start contributing, how to submit a PR, how to interact with the community, here is the opportunity to learn how to do that, right, David?
Yes, absolutely. These are live hands-on sessions that will walk you through a variety of topics, as you can see. First-time contributor, as mentioned, the newest Power Platform samples. If you want a demo on this call, we encourage it, but we know it might be a little scary for you, so we have our first-time presenter and a whole host of others. In addition to the ever-popular Ask Me Anythings, which is going to be including upcoming sessions for list formatting and PnP PowerShell. So these are all safe space opportunities, inclusive, hands-on, not recorded, so feel free to come collaborate with others in the community, get involved, and we'd love to see you there.
Yeah, and Hacktoberfest aside, you can also get another really important recognition if you contribute to PnP, right?
Yep, absolutely. We have the recognition program, which is growing in popularity. Love to see all of the registrants for it. This is a program that we have launched to really celebrate all the amazing work that you do in the community. We are partnering with Credly, which means that that is the same platform that provides the badging for the Microsoft certification program. So when you get a PnP badge, it will sit right next to those. You can proudly share it on Twitter and LinkedIn, and it will be connected to your LinkedIn profile. You have to opt in so that we can connect you to the Credly account. You can do that at ak.ms/m365 PnP-recognition. There is no cost. And as we head into the end of the year, we're going to have a lot of fun campaigns working with a lot of folks across Microsoft and the PnP team to create some campaigns that are going to be fun and opportunities for you to earn those badges and for us to celebrate the amazing work. So aka.ms/m365 PnP-recognition. Paolo, back to you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for all your great contribution to the PnP program. Now I think it's time for Vesa, I think, to share something with us about the upcoming Microsoft 365 platform call. Right, Vesa?
Yeah, so as you might know, just in case, always recapping in these things, we have introduced a new weekly community series, which is actually Microsoft presenting towards the community. So these Thursday calls are now positioned more as a community-driven community calls and community demos. And then Tuesday calls are more about Microsoft program managers, engineers, and cloud advocates presenting for you. So next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, because again, this is a recurrent weekly call, we'll have 2 really cool demos coming up from Kristen Womack and Vivian Hiambo, latest on the Microsoft Graph Explorer. And it is super, super cool stuff, what is happening in the Microsoft Graph Explorer, new capabilities being introduced, and Kristen and Vivian are going through that. And then we have Tejas Mehta from the OneDrive SharePoint side talking about how to get started of using the Microsoft Viva connections in your tenant. So what's the Viva connection all about? How do you set it up? How do you configure that within your tenant? What are the configuration options and so on? So really cool stuff on next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. But throwing it back to you, Paolo.
Thank you, Vesa. Thank you, Vesa. So now, talking about the PnP initiatives and libraries, let's start talking about the PnP .NET libraries. And let's see what the news are in this area. Well, first of all, talking about the PnP framework, we are really proud of it because the number of downloads is growing like crazy. We are now at 170,000 downloads, and we are working on preparing version 1.7 of the PnP framework library. one of the improvements that we have in this library is that we made it possible to use PnP Core SDK without dependencies on internals types. So we did a bit of refactoring, but work heavily on this part, as well as we improved the library with fixes from Christian Zwelig and Cohen Sommers. And we are still working on implementing support for the new schema, provisioning schema version 2021-03, meaning that from an engine point of view, we already have full support for the schema, but we need to implement all of the functionalities behind the scenes of the schema in the provisioning engine. And if you have any spare time in your agenda, feel free to reach out to the team, reach out to me, Bert, and we will be more than happy to let you help us to develop the next release of the provisioning engine. We plan to release the version 1.7 in early autumn 2021. And then talking about the PnP Core SDK, which is yet another really heavily growing project in the PnP area, we are proud to announce that we released on Tuesday this week the PnP Transformation Framework public preview. So right now, if you go to the PnP Core SDK repository on GitHub, you can see the source code of the PnP Transformation Framework. There are a few examples available, and pretty soon, most likely by the end of this week, so tomorrow, by tomorrow evening, we will have a new commandlet for PowerShell, PnP PowerShell, which you can use to start playing with this new framework. What is the transformation framework about? Well, it's a framework that helps you to transform content from potentially any external data source, and when I say content, I mean pages, into modern pages in SharePoint Online. Right now, we do provide support for SharePoint Classic on-premises or online as the data source, and SharePoint Online Modern as the target, as the unique target for the PnP Transformation Framework. But from an architectural point of view, you can build your own connector for any external data source, and you can feed the content, again, I mean pages, into SharePoint Online, into modern pages of SharePoint Online. Our plan is to release GA of this product or of this framework by the end of this year, calendar year. And hopefully with the help of the whole community and with your feedback and your issues and stuff like that, we will make it real. So give an eye to it and let us know what you think about it. What's next? PnP PowerShell. I see that my friend Erwin is online, so
I am here. Yes. Yeah. So on the outside, to the outside world, not much is changing. We do nightly release. I noticed now that the update number the download number has not been updated, but we're around 850,000 right now. So quite a high number, reaching the 1 million, which is really nice. But behind the scenes, we're working, and it's a bit hidden down there on the right side and on the middle column there, effectively in progress V2 proof of concept. We're working on a V2 release, which will be a bit of a different approach, very similar still than the current PowerShell, PnP PowerShell, but the approach we intend to simplify things a lot. So right now, for instance, you see that there's a lot of commandlets that have all kinds of switches and parameters and options and things and behave differently based on the switches, and we want to break them apart into separate commandlets. Then again, this is not something we plan to release immediately. The idea is that we create a proof of concept, and then in the second half of October, we will call out for a community call where all of you are invited and discuss this with us and give us feedback on if you think we're on the right approach. We will have a very small prototype with a few commandlets in there to demo then, and you can see what is all about. And for instance, an idea, instead of having a new PnP side commandlet, there will be a new PnP team side commandlet, a new PnP communication side commandlet. So instead of having a single commandlet that creates sides depending on switches, we will have a dedicated commandlet. And the idea is that we break up a lot of all these commandlets into like somewhat more detailed, more specific commandlets. So that's going to be a lot of work. So do not expect V2 to be feature complete when we start to release it as a preview. We're looking for the community to help us out with, and we will provide guidelines on what we're looking for and how we would like to see things to go forward. But first, we have to get this proof of concept a bit demoable, to use that word, and then second half of October there will be a call which we will spread on social media to find, so that you can find where when and what time that call is. And then we're looking for feedback and hopefully a very vivid discussion.
Thank you, Erwin. So yet another really cool project of PnP is the yoteams, the Yeoman generator for Microsoft Teams. In this area, we are happy to announce that we have released 3.3, in which you can find a lot of cool new stuff, like, for example, support for Teams Manifest version 1.11, and thanks to Stefan Bisser for that, as well as a lot of improvements here and there to make the Yeoman generator for Teams better and better on a daily basis. We are also growing the team working on yoteams to make it possible to become even faster, releasing new versions and improving this tool. That said, what about the Microsoft Graph Toolkit? I think there are our friends, Beth, from the Graph Toolkit team.
Yeah, thank you. So for the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, for those of you who doesn't know what this is, it's a reusable web component library and authentication providers that help you work and connect with the Microsoft Graph. For the past month, we're still working closely with our partners around Microsoft to preparing for a V3 release, which is going to introduce a whole bunch of breaking changes, including the alignment of all the toolkit components to full UI web components. This is going to introduce a similar look and feel across most of our M365 products after this is done. And one of the components that we're going to introduce based on this is called MGT Picker. It's going to enable you to have your own entities to be added to the Picker component that, you can pick files, people, chats, that sort of things. Another thing that we're working on that's not on the list is we have a lot of accessibility bugs on our playground that's taking a lot of the time from our team. So since the V2.3 release, we haven't really been able to manage to introduce new features on the V2 realm, which is why we really need our community's help. Come to our repo and help us fix bugs. And if you want to look at the help wanted and good first issue issues on our repo, you can head over to aka.ms/mgt. We're also participating in the Hacktoberfest. It's been a couple years, and make sure that you tag the issues that you contribute to our repo with Hacktoberfest's tags in GitHub to win your badges and your gifts. And give us feedback for some of the PRs that we have for our new components. There are specs out there, and you can try these new features in the next packages with /mgt at next and feature name in the packages. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I think now that we have Bob German sharing with us information about the Microsoft Teams samples, right, Bob?
Yes, hi everyone. And today I'm pleased to announce 3 updates and new samples from Marcus Moeller. So thank you so much, Marcus. He's been working really hard on sharing cool things with the community. I'll start at the bottom of the list and go to the funnest one at the top. Is funnest a word? Anyway, he has improved his yoteams Graph Toolkit integration to use the MSAL 2.0 provider. So that's a really nice step forward. And the SSO provider still works as before. So he's got all that there. So that one's just been updated. And then he's got a sample bot, what I would call a bare bones sample. So it just shows you what you need to know if you want to write a bot that handles meeting lifecycle events. So the meeting SDK will tell you, like, if you are running before, during, or after a meeting. And now he's showing how to use all this from inside of a bot. The one I'm the most excited about, and this was actually sort of a request from Teams Engineering, and so Marcus, I think, has delivered and then some. Imagine that you go to a meeting and you're trying to pronounce somebody's name, and you don't want to keep asking them, how do you say your name again? So with this solution, it will actually allow each person to record their name at the beginning of the meeting, and then anyone in the meeting can use the flyout to play back privately the name, so that if I'm not sure how to say Paolo, and I can say, okay, I will play that back, and then when I say his name, I will have just heard it properly said, and I will get it right the first time. I think this is just a great. It's not only really innovative and great use of Teams meeting apps, but it's also something that I think will help people to get closer together and to work more closely. So I'm just a huge fan of this. He actually also went above and beyond and integrated this with Graph Toolkit so that we now have pictures of the attendees right inside the recordings next to their names. So I'm pleased to announce that this will be, Marcus will be on the next one of these calls on October 14th, demonstrating this solution and explaining how it works. But it's now live in the Teams samples. So thanks again to Marcus and everyone. We love your samples. Please go ahead, go to aka.ms Teams samples and browse all the samples that are there, and also please contribute your samples. If you've done something cool or different, please share it with the community. We really appreciate it. And that's it for me. Back to you, Paolo.
Thank you, Bob. And just for the sake of completeness, you pronounce my name correctly, so that's Paolo, right? Okay, so we also have the Power Platform samples where you can find plenty of samples. I think April will not be with us today, so just to remember that you can go to aka.ms Power Platform-samples, and there we will find plenty of samples in the area of no-code, low-code development. That said, it is now time for our Together mode picture. So let me switch to the Together mode. Let me start.
I already did it for you. So
oh,
I
thank
can do this
you. You are a lovely assistant. Thank you.
Yeah. So do you want me to do this, or do you want to do it?
Either way. I was well prepared, but you can do that.
Oh, you are no. You're already sharing the screen. That's really good. But okay. You need to change the scene because I'm seeing my scene, but you're not seeing the right scene.
Okay. Or you can do that. I don't know.
Okay. Let me share my screen. So let's do that.
If you want to have a different scene, take it away.
I do. I do. So there we go. So we are already recording, and that should be fine. I'm just double checking. Yes, the recording is ongoing. We can see everybody, and everybody can see each other. We are fully backed in the room, so let's do some hand waving. Thanks everybody for being here, waiting for the end of the year whenever we get to see, hopefully physically in the in-person conferences. Thanks everybody. Gonna grab a GIF animation out of that. Thank you. Thanks, Paolo. And let's move back on the demos. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vesa. So back to the presentation, and it's now time for the demos, as you said. So first of all, we have Thomas Golles showing us the Teams leaderboard sample. So Thomas, feel free to share your screen and start your demo. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. A short demo for the Teams toolkit using Blazor, an example called the Teams leaderboard. Some contact information, not so important, but that's how you can reach me later on. In terms of Teams development, you probably all know or heard about all the different options we as developers have to integrate, enrich, enhance, whatever euphemism you want to use, the Teams platform. And there is something new in the making. It's still in preview and not released. So I expect this slide actually, or I hope that there is somebody already working on a newer version from this slide for Ignite in a couple of weeks. But we have since a couple of weeks the option with Teams FX, the Microsoft Teams framework. Two options actually to create Teams solutions in a different way. There's the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code that is based on top of your well-known and respected technology from TypeScript, Node.js, JavaScript to create applications that way. And there is also an option to go to the .NET way using Blazor for Visual Studio 2019, and that's something we're going to focus today. So that's Teams FX. We already had a PnP call, I think, a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not doing the total introduction, but there are links in the presentation to videos and articles that really get you going. But today we want to make an example. And for that example, we want to set the reference right and make a short business case. In a dream world, there is the mindful Teams consultant, him or her, doesn't matter, sitting somewhere nice and thinking of what is really needed. And what's really needed is happy users, happy end users. And there are different ways to reach that. And one, of course, is use gamification. And that's what we are doing with the leaderboard. But with gamification, you need to be a little bit careful, because if there are winners, there are also people on the other side of the table. So be careful. And my parents always told me that you can learn nothing from watching movies, and actually that's false when you see that quote. Enough from PowerPoint. Let's dive right into the demo. The leaderboard is running in the back already. Here is a Teams application. I'm going to show you the application up front, and then we can walk through the code. It's a simple static Teams tab at the moment. I'm logged in on my developer tenant. I can have a look at a team. Let's go for the PnP demo team. And there is a channel selection, and I have the scoring lab channel here. It refreshes, and then it scores points and gives a leaderboard. What's that all about? We have here in a different world, I'm logged in as Chris Kent. So to make that more interactive, we have this scoring lab channel here, and you see there are channel messages, replies, interactions with emojis, and all the typical stuff that you do in a channel. And the leaderboard actually counts all those things. So we give different amount of points for messages. We give extra points for a message with a subject, because everyone likes to have proper subject in a Teams channel. And of course, we have reactions here. So when I, as Chris, just copy one of his last tweets over here to really have something powerful to say to my rather senseless comments. So I post it here. And if I switch back to my other view, you see here, at first, of course, I get the information. I'm switching back and just have 1413 here, switching back to channels. And you see, I got more points now. So that's a live grabbing all the channel messages and going through that and counting all the different scores. How's that built? Let's stop the debugger for a second. That's actually built with Teams FX, the component you get when you install the Teams toolkit for Visual Studio. How do you do that? You click on Manage Extensions over here and just search for Teams. And be careful, take the Teams Toolkit Preview. There is a different one for Teams also that's outdated, but the Teams Toolkit Preview is the one that you want to have. You need to do that still in Visual Studio 2019. It's not available yet in Visual Studio 2022, but you can start your solution here and then open it with the new version as well to make all the fun with hot reload and .NET 6 working. But for today, we stay with the simple version in .NET 5. It's one tab here, so it's a simple tab that uses some components that are open sourced. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that, so I leave that out. But there's a data grid and some columns that is actually the board, and there are two drop-downs with values. And of course, the drop-downs are populated at the beginning with our teams. So when we at first render the page, at first we gonna set up Teams FX. That's actually a class, a helper class that comes with the Teams Toolkit. It's down here, Teams FX. So if you create a new project, you already get the project scaffold that way. In that case, I only added, I think, 60 or 80 lines of code in there. So the structure is the same when you start now. And it's also already creating this first on after render async method. So you just need to add your own code here. And my code down is here. So I'm adding a get teams method, and the get teams method gets a graph service client. And the graph service client is also something you get from the Teams Toolkit. Basically, it's already authenticated. It is using a single sign-on. How does this work? When you start first time with your Teams FX project, go to project, you have this point Teams FX here, and you can click configure for SSO. And with that click, the Visual Studio instance will ask you for your identity the first time. So that should be the identity of hopefully your development tenant, because with that account, you need to have permissions to create Teams applications, and you need to have the permissions to create Azure Active Directory applications in your Azure tenant. That's all that, or this button does all that for you. And it updates also your manifest, because behind the scenes, of course, there's a Teams manifest somewhere. All on local host at the moment, because when I debug the session, it's just in my local browser, and it's just an iframe in my Teams instance, not running in Azure somewhere, just all local. But that actually gets created by clicking configure and by creating your first solution. And as you see here, it's just a content URL because we only have a static tab and the URL is tab. If I go back to my tab.razor file and make the switch to the top, you see page tab. That's the Blazor or Razor way to tell the system, okay, I want to be in this route. And going back to the graph client, as it's already everything is configured here, we have single sign-on in place. We just can call the graph service client. Behind the scene, what is happening, Teams FX in a Blazor way is basically a wrapper component using JavaScript interoperability between Blazor and the Teams SDK, and they are using the Teams JavaScript SDK in the background to get your bearer token. And if you double click on the graph service client, in the end of the day, JavaScript code grabs your token using the SSO behavior of the Teams SDK, and then it hands over to the .NET graph client and says, okay, let's create a new graph client. I already have a bearer token for you. Let's use that. And then we have a graph client here. And with that client, we can just go and list all our teams. Very simple, me join teams and get back and then sort it to have it properly nicely sorted in our drop down. And from there, we only need to add code that does something, of course, when the teams drop down changes. When that happens, we're gonna search for all the channels in that selected team. And then we're gonna do something when you select something in your drop down from the channels, because you first select your team, then you select the channel, and from there we're gonna start and load score data. And the score data basically is then going to go and say, okay, I know now the team ID, I have the channel ID from my selection from the drop down. I kept the starting point there because what you see here is already up on GitHub. And for reference, just to get started very quickly or for developing purpose, it makes sense to sometimes start quickly, provide your team ID, provide your channel ID, and you're sure, and you don't need to double click all the selection points. So hard-coded values are also possible, of course. And then you're gonna fetch all the messages. And for all the messages, we're gonna look for, okay, does the message have a subject? If the subject is not null, then their subject exists. And then we say add score from the user ID, from username. And then we have a sophisticated scoring model that basically says, I think 7 for a message with a subject, and we add that through. So with subject, with other subject, and then we're counting reactions. But we want to have all the messages and all the replies also in our calculation. So for each chat message, we also go in there and call again the graph and call all the different replies. And again, from the replies, we are also scoring, is it just a reply or is it a reaction on the reply? And with all that data, we end up having a scorer list and a leader list. And basically that parameter is then bound to our component over here. You see here, load score data is the method and the count and the data is there. And that's how easy you can create this rather simple leaderboard. And I start again to see the experience that you have when you press F5. It always wants to install the app in a new way. And then it will load here. I can select the PnP team again, have my channel here, and we get back the resources or the results again. So that's it from where we are at the moment. So wrap it up. What you saw actually is a Teams application using Teams FX for scaffolding a Blazor project. We called graph to retrieve messages and did some counting and counted messages in a certain way to create a leaderboard and created a small component to make that available as a tab. From there, what can we do next? We could also add code to make that not only a static tab, but also a tab for a channel, so that it's not an application that's bound to a person, but more to a channel. So we get the environment and could easily just target one channel. We could add notifications about leaders and channel messages with adaptive cards or bot messages. We could notify winners. And the most interesting part for myself, and that's just a preview and something that is coming the next weeks. If we move that all over to .NET 6 and we use the power of Blazor and Maui, we can make applications that are running in Teams using a library component from Blazor, and the same application then can be surfaced in iOS, in Android, and desktop. But that's something I'm looking forward to over the next weeks. Here are the resources, and with that, I say thank you and hand it back to Paolo.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Great demo, like always. And it is now time for Leaderboard to share your screen and show us your demo. Please.
Okay, thank you. Let me just share my screen. So my name's Lee Ford, Solution Architect, Microsoft MVP. And today I'm going to do a demo on web chat in Microsoft Teams. So what is web chat? So web chat's, you've probably all used it, but ultimately it's a way of chatting to other people via a website. You know, I've got an Amazon example here, but it could be anything really. And the idea is that a user doesn't need to install an app or have a piece of software. They can effectively go to a website, click a button, and then join a chat with someone on the other end. That might be AI, that might be a real person. But what we're trying to do here is the other end is actually within Teams. So we are looking to, when someone joins a web chat, then they're unaware that it's Teams on the other end, but ultimately it saves the person on the other end having to have another client in addition to Teams. So the idea is that it kind of uses what you already have. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration before we get started. So this is the web chat within, so this is running in Azure Web App at the moment. So on the left-hand side, we have the web chat, and on the right-hand side, we have Teams. And effectively, what happens is a user goes to a website and they just fill in the footer. If I just refresh the page just to show you, you basically get presented with a blank page. This is using the sort of basic web chat sample. So you select a category. So I'm going to select sales for argument's sake. I'm going to put my name in. I'm just going to put in anything, but the idea is that this then gets presented through into Teams. So I'm just going to put my, and I'm going to be blunt here. When will it arrive? I click join chat. And now in sales, I've got an adaptive card come through, effectively with the same details that were submitted in the form. And from here now I can talk just sort of within the channels, put like, has anyone picked this up? And that won't go through because the bot hasn't been mentioned. And then I can mention the bot and it will then through into the web chat. And I can put hi and yeah, so on and so forth. What else you can do is you can effectively, once the chat's finished, I'm not going to kind of pretend to chat with myself, but if I end the chat, I can give some sort of closing notes, and these are only within Teams. They don't appear in the web chat, and this is just put customer satisfied or whatever you want to put, and you can send that, and then it effectively ends the chat. Get notification on both ends. The status here has changed to ended, so it's got no further action. And if you try and sort of talk to the conversation afterwards, it won't let you because it will just say that it's ended, and it's not in relation to anything. Second part I'll just quickly demonstrate is adding a new channel. So if you want to add a new department comes online and they want to be part of the web chat, you can just create a team. So let me call it after sales. Create that. I'm not going to add any members in. And then effectively it works. It should work. If I add a bot, if I add the web chat bot into the team, it should ask me what do I want it to appear as. So this will be what does it show as in the drop down over here. So if I just call it, I'll just call it after sales to be consistent. And now if I refresh this page, I have an additional category to send a chat request through to. So that's it demonstration wise. I'll just quickly nip back to the PowerPoint and go through it. So what is in there, and effectively what we have is a web app that's running or using bot framework. It's using bot services then with 2 different channels. We've got the direct line stroke web chat channel, and we've also got the Teams channel. And then we're using Cosmos DB to effectively store the conversation references and anything related to the 2 conversations, because ultimately in this scenario, there's actually 2 conversations that are completely separate. You've got the web chat talking to our web app, and then you've got the Teams user talking to our web app, but they don't actually directly talk. Effectively, we're proxying the chat between the 2. And sort of going over the high-level process, what's happening here is an activity, i.e. someone's joined a chat or someone sent a message, comes from web chat, the bot is handling it in bot framework and then effectively relaying that activity back onto Teams. And likewise, it's the same the other way. If someone mentions the bot within a conversation, that then gets handled by the bot and then relayed back through to the web chat user. And I'll just quickly go into a bit more detail on sort of how it all works in the background. We have a user joining a chat. That creates a conversation in the direct line channel with the bot services. We then get that activity into our web app through the sort of / API messages endpoint. We store that conversation because at this point we're not sure who it's in relation, what it's in relation to with Teams. We then create a brand new conversation in Teams. We create a chat thread in Teams. We store that chat thread and conversation reference in Cosmos. So at that point, we've kind of got both sides of the same conversation. So next time a message comes through from one channel, we know the other end of the conversation, what the other channel is conversation references. And then effectively, it's just a user kind of responding to the thread from either side, really. And then I'll quickly go through some of the code. I don't have time to go through it all, but I've kind of just boiled it down to the sort of the basic construct here. So we have bot framework and we have an activity handler. And what is happening here is that certain activities are happening. Certain activities happen within Teams or within web chat. So the first one is the on installation update. So that is effectively when the web chat bot gets added to a channel. It then sends an adaptive card through saying, okay, what do you want to call the channel in the web chat? And that's effectively what's happening here. Then we have an on message. That's a standard chat message coming through, or an adaptive card from web chat. That's encoded as a message, and effectively we're just seeing if it's come from web chat or direct line. Then we upsert the web chat conversation into Cosmos, and we then send it to the web chat to Teams activity handler to kind of do whatever it needs to do to make it work in Teams. And conversely, if it's coming from Teams, we upload the Teams conversation into Cosmos and kind of link them together, and then we send it on to web chat. So there's certain things that Teams will send to, and web chat doesn't like the way it's sent, and likewise things coming from web chat that we've got to be careful with the way Teams handles. So I won't go into these activity handlers here, but it's just a few differences, which is why we've kind of had to separate them out to different activity handlers. And then finally we have the on member added, and that effectively is the welcome message that comes into web chat saying what's your name, what's your telephone number, all that sort of stuff. Then we have we're actually using universal actions in Teams. So the adaptive card that you saw that was allowing you to end chat and other things, that is adaptive card 1.4. It's using the universal actions, and that doesn't get captured as part of the on message activity handler. So in this scenario, we are using an invoke activity, and effectively what we're doing here is we are checking that it's an adaptive card. Then depending on what the payload is in the card, is it an end chat or is it adding a channel to a web chat? So when I added that sort of after sales one, that came through as a universal action. So I need to distinguish what is actually happening, what's come from Teams, and effectively based on what type of activity it is, then we're handling it differently. And because it's a universal action, we always have to respond with an adaptive card to be updated in the original source. So whatever card it came from, we have to then send a response to what that card needs to look like. So we are using that for when we end a chat, we then change the card to say that the chat is now ended. That's it, really. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Thank you for listening. I've got the sample is on GitHub, so if you want to kind of dig into the code yourself and then have a look, then by all means.
Thank you, Lee. Really
Okay.
interesting demo and really useful scenario. So thank you. It's now time for Natalie and Martin to share with us the latest updates on the independent publisher connectors for Power Platform.
Hi, everyone. Good to be back since 2 weeks ago. So again, for those who don't know, independent publisher connectors are Power Platform connectors that can be submitted by anyone for use within our platform, right? So if you're tired of building custom connectors and, not having an easy way to share them or having to import them into each environment, this is a great way to kind of get that connector out there, get your name and the product, so on and so forth. So since last call, we've had 1 new connector published, the AccuWeather connector by Ahmad, and 4 new connector submissions, 3 coming from new independent publishers. That's pretty exciting. And 1 by Troy. Troy, I see you on the call today, so hello. And Troy submitted a SpaceX connector, which is really exciting. So we have a total of 16 connectors in production so far, and 20 more coming in the pipeline. So one of the updates I want to share is we had a couple of bugs in our certification pipeline, but we're getting them all fixed definitely by the end of the week. So next week, all normal things will resume and we'll get your connectors back into the direction of production. Also, I know Hacktoberfest was talked about multiple times during the call, right? Because this is a GitHub repository. I've already added the topic of Hacktoberfest. So if anyone's looking to submit a new connector or add functionality to any of the connectors that we have in that repository, you're more than welcome to. In terms of the leaderboard for number of active connections, Airtable is still #1, HubSpot CRM still #2, and Jira Search by Paul is still #3. So it's exciting to see all those and the usage there. And just wanted to call out the independent publishers again. Ahmad, Daniel, Duke, who is new, Martin Lesborough, who's joining the call today to provide an awesome demo, who's built 2 connectors, Michał Guzowski, Matt Beard, Nick Brown, Nirmal, Paul, Rui, Troy, Vivek, and Woong. So it's really exciting to have all these folks publishing such great connectors. And I wanted to also say a huge congratulations to Troy, who submitted 12 connectors, which is a lot, definitely our biggest contributor so far. So congrats, Troy. And just to refresh on, how you can become an independent publisher, step 1 is building the custom connector, right? If you want to collaborate with somebody else, you're more than welcome to as well, or revisit one you've built in the past, add functionality to an existing one. If you're stuck on what connector you should build, you can always go into top connector asks in our wiki in the GitHub. Step 2 is preparing all the artifacts you need. So there's 3, the Swagger, API properties, and the README MD, which is used for documentation. Then you submit the artifacts, make sure you add in screenshots that the connector works into your pull request. And then you follow through with comments during certification, right? So certification can take anywhere between 2 weeks and a little bit longer, depending on the number of times we have to go back and forth, just to make sure everything is working so that your connector can get full adoption. And then step 5 is to show off your connector, right? So I've been doing a number of YouTube recordings. Martin and I have one tomorrow morning, morning my time, afternoon, evening Martin's time. And, being able to be in the blog and have other spots, just having your name in the product and your connector out there. So it's pretty exciting. And you can always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the program. Martin, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share the right screen. Hopefully you can all see my screen now. It's obviously the Microsoft Platform Connectors repository in GitHub. All of us working on the independent connectors live down here. And I'll be showing you this one today, the UK government bank holidays. This is a very small, very simple custom connector. The UK government provides a website which gives you
a huge chunk of JSON which lists bank holidays for you. This is quite useful, as bank holidays have a tendency to move date each year. So if you need to check on them, sometimes you need to not work off just the day in assumption, but what it is for that particular year. The other strange thing for me, it actually is this value of bunting, which is probably the most bizarrely British attribute I've come across in JSON. Bunting, if you don't know, is that string of little flags you're meant to get out for celebrations. So if you've ever wanted to know whether or not you should be getting the bunting out or not in the United Kingdom, this can tell you. Anyway, as a demonstration today, we're going to be starting off with a form. This is fairly simple. It's just a form, a bit of text, and you select date. And in this case, overexcited employee selects the 25th of December, which, if you were quick, you would have seen was on a Saturday. Clicking OK, that goes into a flow. And then eventually, once the flow processes the request, we should be receiving an email telling us we don't need to take that off as holiday, as it's either a weekend or a bank holiday. Now, the normal reaction is to make another request again. Got excited when we look, okay, the 25th is a Saturday, let's just take the Monday off, because we want to have a long weekend over Christmas. Wait for the response again. This time, you don't need to take it off. And the reason for that is because Christmas Day falls on the Saturday, the actual Christmas Day holiday in the United Kingdom is bumped along to the Monday. So the 27th is the Christmas Day holiday, not the 25th. So, assuming a date which is neither a weekend or a bank holiday, you will be told you can have the date off. This is all fairly simple stuff. It's done by this flow. Now, if any of you've looked at flow templates, you'll immediately recognize this. This is the simple flow form to email template, adapted a little bit. Okay, so we have form response submitted. You get the form details, and quite literally all the bank holiday custom connector does is allow you to fetch the holidays for the kingdom. It literally returns one large piece of JSON. This is what the government gave us. It's a bit disappointing, but I'm hoping to look into splitting that up via the new code for code in connectors option. Now, the next step is to literally just grab only the England and Welsh holidays here. We then filter the array, looking for a date from the English and Welsh holidays that matches the date that was submitted with the form. And that will give us an array. Fairly simple there. If there's nothing in the array, it's not a bank holiday. If it's one, then we found a bank holiday. This is getting the day of the week as an integer. The day of the week function will return a number representing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, whatever day of the week, as a numeric value to you if you use this. So the user submitted their day request. We just give them, we just find the number. And that's because down here, I'm actually setting the variables to represent Sunday and Saturday. The reason for doing that is here in this selection, it makes this a little bit more readable. So if we have an instance where the number of bank holidays is greater than 0, or the day of the week is equal to Sunday or Saturday, then we send a not required email in terms of taking that holiday, and we've got the responder's email from their form submission. If it's not the case and they can take the holiday, we'll send an approval message, again using the responder's email address, and a slightly different message. Now, the example is almost a bit trivial, but the idea is to give you some idea of how you could build on this. This flow could be extended, so you could do such things as, when a request is submitted, get the username, find the person's manager from the AD, and send an approval request off to that manager first, before the user is told they can take the holiday. Within my company, I loaded this connector up into our tenant. Colleague who's written a substitute Scrum system for us, which consists of a form was sent each morning to tell people what we're doing with a normal agile Scrum, what we did yesterday, what we're doing today, do we have blockers? We put the answers in, we send it in, it gets attached to a Teams channel. That now doesn't bother sending us those forms on a bank holiday. He's checking with this. In our parent company, it's also being used for a round robin for call allocation within that company. So calls submitted on a bank holiday are put into a special bucket to be dealt with, rather than being allocated out when no one's actually working, and giving someone the potentially false impression that a call may be getting dealt with when it isn't. That is pretty much the UK government bank holiday connector. There's not a lot to it, but it turns out to be quite useful. People tend to quite like it when they suddenly realise they can check on bank holidays.
Thank you so much, Martin. It is now time to say one more time thank you to everyone else for joining us in today's call. The recording will be available in 24 hours from now under the Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel. The next Microsoft 365 General Development Call will be in 2 weeks from now, so October the 14th, 7 a.m. Pacific time. And just as a reminder, this is the list of all of the calls with the useful links to join them if you want to attend any of the other community calls that we have on schedule. And that said, thank you again for joining us. Have a nice day or evening, and see you the next week. Thank you.